Hey y'all, it's Laura with Scattered Women. I am here with Rebekah Bergren this afternoon. I almost said morning. It is not morning anymore. And we are here talking about all things gut health and how to help our families really improve our gut health, even if we've got little ones at home and reluctant husbands and whatever else. We got to get everybody on board, and she's got her best tips on how to do this. Rebekah, I actually met when I was working at a university in Texas. She was on the married RA staff. And so we just got to know each other through student life, really. She worked in the office and we just ran into each other a lot. But over the last few years, she's really been on this gut health journey in healing her own body to deal with some health issues that she'll tell us about in just a little bit. But hearing her story and just following her on Facebook has been so encouraging, because she's one of the few people I know who's actually doing it and it's working. So I just wanted to bring her on and let her tell us a little bit about her story and where she's been, and then give us some of her best tips for improving gut health with your whole family. So Rebekah, I am going to just flip over and let you introduce yourself a little bit to everybody. Tell them kind of who you are, what you're about, and then just a little bit about your story.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. That was such a nice introduction. So, yes, I live in Texas. My husband and I, we actually just bought some land out in East Texas, starting up a ranch. So that's definitely been an adventure. So we have 4 children. I have a 10-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and a gap, because that was hard having those close together, and then a 3-year-old little girl and a 1-year-old boy. So that's what we're doing out here in East Texas, learning about how to farm, and eventually we bought a tractor, all that good stuff that you think about. We have cows on the property as of like 2 days ago. So my kids are really excited.
Oh, how funny. Yeah, I can imagine that would be a totally new adventure for them.
Yes, my 1-year-old loved it. He sat on the swing watching them. My 3-year-old was mad, really, really mad, because they were at our house and they weren't supposed to be. So she spent the afternoon yelling at them. So she's pretty feisty, though. If you follow me on social media, you will quickly realize which one that one is very quickly. So.
Lots of personality on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's a little bit. I'm an educator by trade. I love teaching. So it's been a little bit hard trying to figure out how do I use those spiritual gifts if I'm not in a classroom. This is my first year to be a real stay-at-home mom.
As opposed to a fake stay-at-home mom.
I know. Well, last year we were homeschooling. We had just a lot of transition in our lives last year. My husband's a pilot, so he's out of town a lot. So all you other mamas who have husbands that are working a lot, I understand. Yep. But I'm so thankful for him. Yes.
Very cool.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how did you get interested in gut health? Why is this a thing for you?
Oh, yes. Well, it's interesting because even a few years ago, I would have told you this one pivotal moment that kind of got me started. Mm-hmm. But the more you learn about gut health, I can now, obviously hindsight's 20/20. I can look back and I can see so many other smaller things that kind of led up, and even since then. But when I was 23, I went to the emergency room for what I thought was maybe a kidney stone. I'd had kidney stones before, and intense pain. I can't even begin to explain it. Turns out I had a digestive blockage in my intestines. Mm-hmm. I remember crying and begging the lady to say, like, this hurts, right? Because I was very fearful that I would be wasting my money for something that was like no big deal. And she said, oh no, like this is serious. So I had my first colonoscopy. Yep. And I know, woohoo. And I remember afterwards, the surgeon came in and was going over my test results. Thankfully, which back up a little bit, I was able to kind of get through that ordeal without needing surgery. It did finally clear up on its own. But there was about 24 hours where we weren't sure that it was going to. And of course, anybody who's had any type of surgery, there's lots of complications following that. After you've had a section of your intestines removed, you're really at risk for having more blockages because of scar tissue buildup. A lot of things I didn't realize at the time. I remember thinking, how long would I get to lay in bed and watch TV if I had surgery? Oh, I can't even believe that. Yeah. So immature, Rebekah. So,
oh no, I understand this. When we've got little kids running around, I mean, I tell people that chemo was horrible, but the best part was that I was allowed to sleep for 4 to 5 days at a time and nobody cared.
Exactly. I know. That's so funny.
Yes,
I can relate. That's so funny. Well, he diagnosed me with a digestive disease. And I remember we looked at him, and I'm just inquisitive by nature, not trying to be disrespectful. And I just said, okay, well, how long do I have to be on that medicine? And he laughed at me, first of all. And he said, for the rest of your life. And I said, well, I'm only 20. I said, what are like the side effects? And I remember he rolled his eyes. He said, my nurse will print you out all the stuff on the medicine. And I said, well, what are my other options? And he said, well, you can get it through an IV or a patch, and he started giving me all the different ways that I could have medication.
Oh my word.
And, I know. And so I remember the last thing he said, and this a couple days later when we went to our follow-up, in between when I left the hospital and my follow-up, I took that packet of information and I just started researching the side effects. Not because I was obstinate and refusing to take the medicine. I just wanted to understand what I was doing when he said, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you really, and that's huge just to know, okay, I want to know what I'm in for. Is this really going to be the best thing for me?
Yes, exactly. And so, and I remember that at our follow-up appointment, he asked how I was feeling. I was feeling great. He asked how I was doing with the medicine. And I told him that I hadn't been taking it. I wanted to research a little bit more. He got very angry. I remember the last thing he said before he stormed out of the room was he leaned his head back in and he said, oh yeah, and don't have any more kids, and walked out. He didn't ask if we wanted more kids. He wasn't asking if we were trying. Of course, then Ryan would have said no, and here we are 2 kids later. But still, I just remember feeling very overwhelmed. And, like as a kid, you grow up thinking that police officers and doctors and firemen, they're your friend and they help you. And so I remember kind of feeling confused as to why I didn't feel like he was helping me. Right. Because they should. So when I went home, I had a lot of people pouring into me. And what's funny is that a couple years prior to that, I remember I had been diagnosed with I was having hives all over my legs, like huge hives all up and down my legs. And at this point, Ryan and we are in school full time, have 2 small children. We're both working, just trying to keep our head above water. We're a young family. And so I remember I went to, a campus doctor or something and across the street from campus, and they gave me a steroid shot. And so the steroid shot helped. So they went away, but then they came back. And I remember when they came back, I thought, well, that was dumb. I'm not going to pay money for that short-term solution. So we went to my family doctor back home. And he knows my medical history. He knows about my family and my parents. And my mom actually has been diagnosed with a handful of autoimmune issues. And he diagnosed my whelps as, he said he wasn't really sure what it was, but he gave me a list of like 15 things it could be and circled the ones that he thought were most likely what I had.
Yeah.
And they all related back to autoimmune issues. And so, of course, that stressed my mom out. It stressed me out, thinking, okay, this is genetic, and it may or may not be. I'm not going into that right now. But I had somebody after that experience talk to me about leaky gut. So I know you know about leaky gut.
I know all about that one.
Yes. And so still, though, it's funny, again, hindsight, I remember that I started reading this book. Actually, I brought it to show you. This is the book. It's Breaking the Vicious Cycle by Elaine. I can never say her last name. Gottschall. Fantastic book. And even then, I was only trying to get rid of the hives. That was it. I didn't realize that it was still, the hives were still symptoms of things that were going on inside. Yeah. So I followed very loosely a specific carbohydrate diet, which that book talks all about it. And I can talk more about that in a bit if you want. But and then sure enough, the hives went away. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. That was the end of that story. And then, of course, about a year and a half later is when I'm in the hospital with a blockage. And so looking back, I can see so many signs that were leading up to that big event. But I just didn't know. And so that's why I love to share with people, because I just want them to see, your body is always speaking to you, always. But, do we know enough to understand or to listen? And
we're not taught that all of those random things are connected. Our doctors aren't taught that those things are connected. Our doctors are only trained to diagnose and deal with the symptoms. Like the holistic practitioners are taught to deal with that. But unless you're dealing with a naturopath or a functional medicine doctor or someone who is specifically focusing on holistic medicine, they're not going to put those pieces together. And we don't then think to. So it's really, it's why we're doing this interview, so that we can empower other women to take charge of their own health and say, okay, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. Could this maybe all be telling me something? Could it all be connected?
Absolutely. Oh, I so agree. And like I said, the more I learned, the more I realized how connected things are. Just yesterday, I was reading about there are so many things that we accept as normal because that's the way we are. And it was about cycles. And sorry if there's any guys watching this, but about how just like heavy bleeding, lots of pain, lots of cramping, and all these other things really aren't what your body should be doing. Mm-hmm. And my mind was blown. I was like, you're not supposed to cramp and eat ice cream for 2 days on the couch. What? But lots of things like that, that people don't realize. I hear that all the time. I hear people say, well, that's just the way I've been for forever. I've always had allergies since I was a kid. I've always had blank. Like, well, maybe you've just always had gut health issues. So,
right? Man, yeah. Were you listening to something by Alyssa Vitti?
No, that was.
Yeah, I read a book by her called The Woman Code years ago, and it was all talking about that. It's fantastic. I think I have it on my resource site on Scattered Woman, but yeah.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out because it really piqued my interest, because I have a daughter who's 10. We're coming into that age, and gosh, it's so hard there are so many things that affect our hormone levels with toxins and things that we use. And I know that people sometimes do what I just did, roll their eyes. We were fine when we grew up. We didn't worry about, and I get it. We have so many more external factors that are in products and things that we use today. And I really don't understand how people don't see that when they kind of look at some of the statistics on young girls and, lots of different things. So I think there's good science-based evidence.
Yeah. And unless they're plugged into some sort of a natural health network, it's not talked about a whole lot. It's getting more mainstream where people are starting to raise the alarm, but most of the time people are willing to just shove that under the rug and be like, oh no, that's not a big deal. Don't even worry about that.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And, somebody explained it like this to me one time, which I thought was fascinating. And I don't remember who it was. Sorry, I can't give credit. But they said, our bodies are like a dam. And that each of us can withhold different amounts. And there are a lot of things that kind of go into it. Our genetics, our current stress level, physical factors, lots of different things. But some people think because their dam hasn't broken that they're fine, but they don't realize that you're constantly building things up, and they may be little, it may just be a little inflammation in your wrist. It may be that you don't have good bowel movements. It may be, anxiety, things that you may seem as seemingly insignificant, allergies, things like that. But the thing is that depending on all those factors, there will come a point in time when that dam or that levee breaks.
Yeah.
And it's different for each person, which is why being proactive is so important, and understanding all the things that go into building, up against where you have your breaking point. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned like having anxiety being one of those triggers. Most people would not connect having anxiety or any sort of mental health issue with gut health. That's just not one that we connect. I think Carissa Kay and I talked about that in a previous live. But yeah, they're super connected. I mean, there's a reason that the gut's called the second brain. Like it is the seat of everything. Yes. I feel like we could get lost in this part forever and just go on like lecturing. So I'm going to move it forward. But we had, Rebekah and I had been talking back and forth for a while, and she had mentioned some of the ways that she was able to get education, support, encouragement for pursuing gut health when that wasn't something she was getting from her natural health, or from, not a natural health doc, from her other doc that was not so nice. So can you tell us just a little bit about those places where you were found the education and the support and the encouragement you needed to really get going?
Absolutely. The first step is remember that it doesn't matter what advice or things we give, you still have to go and do. And so that's my first thing that I always tell people is listen to the podcast, read the books, ask the questions. That's the first step, because I know you've got fantastic resources. I can give some tips. But I do love to listen to podcasts. I am a busy mama. Like I said, doing a lot of stuff. And so podcasts are something that I listen to in the morning when I wake up, when I'm folding laundry, sometimes when I'm driving, when I'm not watching Veggie Tales, which isn't very often. So, but I love listening to podcasts, and something that I focus on when I'm listening to podcasts and looking, and I try to focus on people who are just talking about gut health and the science. I love, I work from home for a health and wellness company, and I love the education that they give me, but I also want to look at unbiased things. And so I'm always trying to listen to different people who I feel like have an even kill, just kind of throwing the facts out there. So podcast is definitely something. And then social media is a great tool. It's so great. And you can connect with so many different mamas, different, food bloggers, anybody who are on that journey. So I actually brought, again, one of my favorite authors, one of her cookbooks. This is Danielle Walker.
Yes.
She's so cute. So yes, I love following her on social media. And something, if you follow her on social media, she's Against All Grain, but her name's Danielle Walker. And I know you've linked to some things. But right now she is in the middle of a really severe flare-up with her autoimmune issue. And she's been in bed for on and off about a month.
Oh, man.
And something that really spoke to me through watching her is, one, it's real. I never want people to think that I am telling them, if you just worry about your gut health and eat right, then you're going to be completely free of your autoimmune issues, of every issue you've ever had. Because she's a great example. She is a New York Times bestselling author, eats nothing but the best, feeding her baby liver for the iron and, all this other stuff. It's, and she's having a really bad flare up, and she has an 8-month-old baby. This is pregnancy number 4, baby number 3. And she said after every single one, at some point in time when your hormones are trying to adjust, she has a flare. And for her, it's gotten worse after each pregnancy. And so it just reminded me that she's been able to basically control and maintain. But I can't even imagine how much worse it would be if she didn't have the education and the knowledge that she does now. And she will. She'll pull through this. She's great. But it just also goes to show you that you are still going to have, if you've got autoimmune issues, that doesn't mean that you're never going to have a flare-up. I've had flare-ups since I've tried to be more conscious of my gut health. Stress alone is a huge, huge.
Preach, sister. We got.
So following people on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook platforms, and then just seeking out books. The thing I've learned is that when I've begun to ask people, they can give me names. They're like, "Oh, have you read this book?" And, like you just gave me another recommendation. There are lots of good book lists. And again, I don't really have time to read. So I do Audible, the app.
There you go.
And I love to listen to books when I can. I would love to be able to highlight and make notes. But the reality is that's just not the season I'm in right now. And that's okay. And that's the other thing, is realizing that whatever season you're in, it is just a season.
Yeah, it is. It's just a season, and this too shall pass. What your mama and your grandmama told you forever is true.
Yep. And Facebook groups are great. If you ask people on social media, I am plugged into lots of different Facebook groups. A Tyler area Crunchy Mama group.
Yep.
And, I ask them and I ask questions, and I never take things just at face value, but you start to realize the people that, okay, I've made a really, really dear friend who lives near here through Facebook because I really began to trust the things she was sharing. And the more I researched, I realized I agreed with her so much so that sometimes there's things that she suggests and I'm like, oh, good. I don't have to think about it. I'm just going to do that. So,
yes, finding people you can trust. Absolutely. And then still keeping that mindset of, okay, yes, but I should still look into this. I need to, always finding people you can trust, and then.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. And pray about it. I mean, hello. Thank you, Jesus, for the Holy Spirit. So thankful.
Yes, agreed. So there will be several of the social media influencers and blogs and podcasts that Rebekah has recommended. Those will be all listed in the post that will accompany this interview. So that's coming tomorrow. So that'll be live on Scattered Women tomorrow with a whole big list of people that Rebekah has found and really loves and trusts. So keep an eye out for that. And we're going to switch gears just a little bit. So we've talked about where we've really gotten the education and the support that you need. What have been some of those big challenges that you've come up against?
Well, definitely some big challenges. I think one of the hardest things is this is completely new to how I grew up.
Oh, yeah.
Very different. And I have had to really dig deep and remember who I am and that I love my family deeply. Because sometimes when you do something different, no matter what it is, against the way that you grew up, it can cause friction. And I have had to continually remind myself that I'm trying to do what I think is best for my family. And then how do you move forward and then doing what you need to do to be true to your own beliefs, but not ever coming across hurtfully or certainly not arrogantly. And that's something that I'm always really mindful of because it would just, as a matter of fact, there have been people before who have been hurt by me and asked me not even to talk to them again because they felt like what I was doing and the choices that I was making was about them. And it wasn't at all. It was about me and trying to do. And as far as that goes too, that person later came back and apologized and said, I'm sorry, I was having a bad day. And she had taken it wrong, and it was just like a perfect storm. But I cried all night long because I thought she thinks that I'm trying to do or say something that was really not my heart's intention. And so, that is hard. But I think that's hard in any area of your life, and that's part of as we grow and as we evolve. I know my mom has always said that parenting adult children has been way harder than anything else because you do, as a parent, you relinquish that control and you no longer get to say, no, you're going to do it this way. And I'm not there yet. And so I'm sure that is hard to see people who, are making different decisions than what you think. And so I always just remind people, when you know and you are making decisions that are rooted in prayer and you feel like you're guided by the Holy Spirit, then all I can do is move forward in that. And so, yes, it is challenging for sure whenever I doing something different than the way I grew up. And not only emotionally, talk about technically, I didn't know where food really, like beef and milk comes from cows and bacon comes from pigs, but I really didn't have a clue. We lived on Hamburger Helper when we first got married, and part of it is because we thought it's what you're supposed to do because, we were in college. You have to eat on ramen, having no clue that, no, you can make sacrifices in other areas because, that's terrible for you.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely been a challenge, is learning all these things. And then you can get overwhelmed easily by, oh my gosh, there's toxins in my makeup. There's toxins in my shampoo and my body wash. There's chemicals on the produce. And I get it. I know it can be overwhelming, but just like anything else, you kind of have to just take it one step at a time. And for me, focusing on food was first because of my physical issues. Yes. Now that I'm trying to get that kind of contained, now I'm kind of branching out. I'm looking at my household cleaners, which really is last because let's face it, I don't like to clean. So I worried about my makeup before I did my household cleaners. So, priorities.
We've all got our own priorities.
Exactly. So, yes.
Yeah. So I'm right with you. I don't like to clean. But I had issues with my asthma with traditional commercial cleaners, whatever those things are called, cleaning product. And I just couldn't breathe when I would use them. So switching that out was huge. It's like, I am either never going to clean or I've got to figure out something that I can use that I can breathe around. Absolutely. So I've got a whole post on like the three DIY cleaning things that I use. That's it. I don't like cleaning. I don't want to clean. So yeah, 3 of them. And that's it. 3 to clean the whole house. We're good.
That's me.
Yeah. And then I've got a whole nother post on the DIY body products. So the makeups, the lotions, all that jazz. Yes. A lot of them were just compiled from various people that I was following online or things that I had Googled and found. Absolutely. So there's lots of resources out there. We just kind of have to compile them and find the ones that work best for our situation and our priorities. So like, absolutely. You worked on food a lot sooner than I did. So lots of different things going on. So you talked about
one other thing real quick about challenges and also about support. It's so easy to get discouraged in whatever you're doing. And I should have hit on that first. So I'm sorry. But a lot of the people that I referred you to are people who also just encourage me as a person, just as a wife and as a mom and as a young person trying to figure out, where I fit. And I would always recommend, whether you're doing the Bible studies, whether you have a small group, whether you're listening to podcasts, people don't always think about how those things affect our health and wellness, but it is huge, talking about stress and anxiety and how those things affect our health. And so I also that can also be a big challenge, is feeling discouraged. And so, how do you overcome that? Well, you surround yourself with encouraging people. You choose positivity. And if you don't know how to do those things, then there are lots of ways or people that you can reach out to help get that for yourself. But I have found one of my spiritual gifts is encouraging others, which on the flip side means that becoming discouraged also happens easily for me. And I have had to be really proactive about counteracting that. And so knowing that about yourself is really important too.
Absolutely. Know thyself. Go read all the personality posts. Figure out what you need. Yeah. I mean, we talk about that. Well, okay. I talk about that all the time, about, understanding how we work. How I work is going to be very different than how you work. Even in how we've been talking back and forth and just saying, okay, this is what I would need, but is this what you need?
Exactly.
We're very different personalities and they're not always going to mesh.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about just various tips on where to find support and how to overcome when you run into challenges in pursuing something that's very countercultural still.
Yes. Yes.
So let's flip over and talk about some more of those family-friendly tips, how to get your family on board with improving your gut health. So the first one that you had sent me was just focusing on balance and creating a mindset that's focused on balance.
Yes. So I am reading Grace Over Perfection right now by Emily Ley. And gosh, it's so funny. So many of the books that I've been reading right now are all about that. And I know that's because that's the season I'm in. But I know so many of you are too, that you're balancing a lot. I want to work out. I just finished in this past December, my very first half marathon, which was great. And I wanted to keep it going. But when I looked at my schedule, and again, my husband's out of town, and we live out in the country, so I can't just run to the gym with the daycare. Mm-hmm. When I looked at those things, I realized, trying to work from home, my business is important. Having my devotion time is important to me. Having obviously the household chores and things that I need to get done, and working out and making real food. When I started lining up all the things I wanted to do and trying to figure out how much time it would take me and therefore what time I needed to wake up, turns out I should be waking up at 3:30 every morning. So, no. I mean, something to go. And for me at this exact moment, it was running and working out. And I don't think that, I'm not at all saying that people shouldn't work out. You should. And I'm actually trying, now that daylight savings has happened, I'm trying to figure out how I can work that back into my schedule. But for that short season from January to March, I realized it doesn't fit in my balance, and I had to let something go, and that's okay. And like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to work that back into my day, because you can always come up with excuses, and I'm not trying to tell anybody to do that. But balance is important, and finding what works for you. And Ali Casaza, that I know you're going to link to, that I shared, she has some great tips on finding balance through simplicity in your home. And that's a great place to start.
Yeah. The first tip is really for us mamas. Let's make sure we've got this piece figured out for us so that we can move forward and help the rest of our family. And so these next three really talk about how we can help our families move forward in this. And the next one you talked about was this only making one meal.
Yes. So, and I'm double checking. I'm so sorry. I want to make sure that I have so many tips. I can't remember exactly which one I was saying about making one meal.
I think that one was when we're talking about when we've got picky kids at home.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
What is it? Colonel wants to eat right now. like peanut butter and jelly and pizza and spaghetti. I think that's about it. That's on Mimi's list.
Mom brain. I'm excited because I've got lots of good tips. So I'm making the one meal. I know lots of people who will make multiple meals. And I'm not saying if your kid doesn't like the crust that you can't cut the crust off, or if they like, one topping versus another. I'm not saying you can't, tweak it a little bit for their taste, but just making one meal and kind of sticking to it. Of course, I always tell my kids, I know they're a little bit older, but my two older ones, I always say, you don't have to eat it. That's fine. Whether or not you eat it is not going to affect my personal joy or happiness because I found that balance somewhere else. But I'm not making more. And so you can eat leftovers or you can not eat. And the thing is, kids are not going to starve. They're fine. Even my 3-year-old, she'll be 4 in May, and she loves to eat. And so, fine, you can have an apple or a banana, and you can even kind of modify it. And the baby, whenever he doesn't want to eat whatever it is, then I let him have something to drink. I kind of present some of those choices, whereas with the big kids, I tell them to do it themselves. If he still chooses to not to, then okay, that's fine. Just make that one meal. And it's just like anything else. When you start to establish where your boundaries are, kids understand that.
They do.
So does your husband.
And you touched on this next one too. That third tip you talked about was just offering options, where you're not just saying, "Well, here's what you get." Done.
Yeah, exactly. So I make the one meal, but then I'm going to still give them, some of our basic guidelines. A piece of fruit. I know a lot of different outlets out there talk about fruits and how you shouldn't have too much. That is my personal belief that is hogwash. And I love fruit. Do I think you should just eat blueberries all day? No, your stomach will not appreciate it. But absolutely. And giving them a little bit of ownership over that too. And trying to give them the options that you really are okay with. There are lots of times that I have accidentally given options where I really only wanted them to have one choice.
Yeah. They will always choose that one you didn't want them to choose.
Oh. And so be true to, if you really aren't going to give them an option, then don't. If it really is okay if they eat this vegetable or that vegetable as a side dish, then great. And with the offer options, I have this weird thing. I want to have at least 3 things on my plate, unless we're having like a soup or a chili for dinner. And so that's the other thing with options is that I'm not always cooking a one-pot meal. I do sometimes, busy nights, but I'll have a meat and a veggie and a fruit or some kind of combination of those. So it's like, you know what? If they don't want to eat the vegetable I had, that's okay. They can eat the meat and the fruit. Same thing on another night. If they don't want to eat the fruit because this one doesn't like bananas, fine. You can eat the vegetable and the meat or, any combination. So when you're offering, at least having a few things when you make that one meal, that kind of helps.
Yeah. And that's something, if you followed, her name's Katie Kimball at Kitchen Stewardship. She does a kids cook real food class, helping kids get in the kitchen and do that. And that's one of her things when she's dealing with picky eaters is you give them options, but these are your options. This is what you have. Exactly. And it's just to give them some ownership in that, like you said.
Yes.
And then that next piece, and she'll talk about this too, is that communicate the why.
Yes. So I'm a why asker. I remember growing up, my mom would say something and I'd be like, well, why? And she would see that as me being disrespectful. And really, I was just being inquisitive. And so I've had to learn how to ask questions in a way that's not disrespectful and trying to share that with my kids. And so I just explain why. We talk about what protein is. We talk about how, you guys, if all you do is eat cereal for breakfast, you will be hungry later. And so the more and more I talk about that, I have found that they are finally starting to say some of those things back to me. Sometimes even without me having to bring it up, especially with my oldest, that she'll ask for something and she'll go, oh, wait, never mind. I know I'm going to have some birthday cake at the party, so can I just have this instead? Yes, you can. And I communicate. Yeah, which that's kind of her personality, and I get that. She's the oldest. She's a girl. But when you begin to explain the reasons why behind, when you're not there, they can understand more. So listen, I would love for you to have another piece of candy, except I know that this, that, and the other will happen as a result of you having more than we normally do. My son has tics sometimes, which is a whole new conversation. But because of that, when he eats a lot of processed sugars, really does he'll lick and it becomes really red and really irritated. And we have found ways to help and things that make it worse. And so I'm constantly explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I'm giving him this to help it, why this decision does that. And they don't always choose what I want them to choose. And they sometimes will do it and then they're sick to their stomachs. But it wasn't for lack of me not explaining, and they're going to have to get there at some point in time, for themselves.
Learning experiences. All about absolutely. Providing ways for them to learn.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. And getting to hear your kids say, oh, yeah, I probably should do this because that would be the better choice. And I know, getting to hear that is hugely rewarding. So talk about some of the other pieces that have really just been rewarding for you as you're walking through this journey.
I think one of the most rewarding things is feeling like a better version of myself. Yeah. So again, I had the blockage. I started my journey towards gut health. And then I was pregnant with baby number 4, and I was exhausted. I was teaching school. So I had a baby at home, baby number 3, pregnant with number 4, husband still works a lot, teaching full time. And I was taking naps during every conference. I would turn out the lights in my classroom and I moved my desk to a corner so that people would assume I wasn't in there. And I would sleep at my desk. And I know people kept kind of telling me, well, it's because you're pregnant. Well, it's because XYZ, your husband's gone, blah, blah, blah. But I would also have to take naps on my 3-hour drive home. And I had this place halfway where I would stop and take a nap and let the kids watch a movie because it was safe. It was kind of near the police station, lock the doors. And again, people love to give me excuses and tell me, oh, it's because of this, that, and the other. But it wasn't. I was having severe adrenal fatigue. And again, I went somewhere trying to find answers for that, why I was so tired, still not even realizing at that point. And, my son, he'll be 2 in June. So about 2 years ago, I still was not seeing how it all connected. So the most rewarding part for me is I started not having to take that nap every day when I got home for dinner. I started realizing what I could and couldn't eat that would affect my digestive health because, what the doctor diagnosed me with was Crohn's. I don't really think that's what I don't know. I know I have digestive issues, but I think it's more ulcerative colitis or IBS. And so anybody who has things like that, well, sometimes you have to completely plan your day and trip around if you can be near a restroom. Oh, yeah. And I've learned that if I follow some of the things that I've learned work for me and work for, the average person who's working on their gut health, then there's more freedom that I'm not having to worry about that. But there's also understanding of consequences because I also know there are some things that I chose to do and I know I'm going to be sick tomorrow, but it's okay because I'll be at home, But the most rewarding part is just feeling empowered, I guess, in that and realizing that, God, I'm so thankful with the way he created us. And I just refuse to believe that he wants me and my gifts to not be used, to be sitting on a couch and sleeping after school every day, or to be sad, or, XYZ, fill in the blank. And so the most rewarding part has been feeling like I can be who God made me to be And, I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And so for you in dealing with the adrenal fatigue, just getting to be your happy, perky, bubbly self.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And most people didn't even have a clue, because when I'm with them, I'm there. I'm an extrovert, so that, juices me up. But I wasn't giving my family my best at all. And as a teacher, especially, you give so much of yourself emotionally. I've got a big heart for educators, because you already give so much to other people's kids. I had zero left for my own kids. Yeah. And it makes me emotional just thinking about it, because I think about how much I want to give my family, and I fall short every single day. And I know how much more I was falling short before I started realizing that your gut health matters. Yeah. I want a lot for myself as the years to come and as my kids get older. And so I'm hoping that those rewards will just continue to multiply into lots of grandkids one day.
We got a ways to go on that one. We don't want to wish that one too soon.
No, but I'm just saying.
But we do. We want to be healthy and around for our grandkids. And I mean, we see that with our own parents and just the health issues that generation is dealing with, and not seeing the connection of that this is how they've lived their life. This is how they've lived the last couple decades. So it's huge.
Yes.
So we switch gears a little bit and talk about the one big baby step that you would recommend for anybody. Do you remember what that was?
I bet you'll remind me.
I will. It's right here.
I'm going to grab my charger. It's just right here. I'm sorry.
Okay, do it. So anyway, I had asked Rebekah just for one baby step of the one thing that people really need to do. That's just that one thing they can start and get going. And this is the one that she was like, everybody, this is good for everybody, regardless of what you're dealing with. Go for it. I'm going to switch over for just a second.
Perfect. So people, again, kind of roll their eyes like, yeah, I know, drink water. But it is so much more than that. Like, for real, they need to stay hydrated. A lot of people will say, a lot of the arguments that I hear against staying hydrated, I can come up with a positive rebuttal for that. So as a teacher, you don't get to go to the restroom very often. As a nurse, there's lots of different professions where you don't feel as if you can go to the bathroom very often. Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I've learned through my journey too is there's a lot to be said about pelvic floor health, first of all. Yeah. And you should have pretty good bladder function. Yes, even after having 1, 2, 3, 4 children plus. And so, there's resources there too. And I'm sure I could help you with that when you connect with me on Facebook if you need them. But you can always find a solution. So if you just don't like the taste of water, which is something I hear all the time, a lot of times that's because your sugar addictions are so crazy outrageous that of course you can't imagine drinking water. You drink nothing but sugar. Yeah. So, okay, let's attack that. Yes. So let's attack that underlying issue, and let's figure out how we can cut down your sugar cravings and start, looking at your gut health and getting rid of the candida overgrowth and the leaky gut. And you will find that your taste will begin to change. So that's the first thing on that one. Staying hydrated, I can give lots of tips. Buy a new bottle. If you're somebody who's like excited about going to Target and getting a new bottle to drink water from, do it. Go shopping. Tell them I told you to. And then, I like to infuse my water with fruit. Here's probably my biggest and best tip for anybody who's around kids, whether you teach, whether your own children, kids are resilient. So let's use that to your advantage. In my classroom, I would tell my students that if you guys make sure that Miss Bergren drinks 2 of these glasses before lunch, I'll give you an extra 5 minutes at recess. You better believe my water boy whoever's job it was for the week or my water girl, every time I went somewhere, they're handing me that water. Here you go, Miss Bergren. Here you go. And we're handing me stuff left and right, making sure, Miss Bergren, and sometimes they're frantic. Miss Bergren, we only have 10 minutes until lunch, and you've got half of a bottle left. And so, you're like, okay. So you sit there and chug. And my children, my personal children, I have them do the same thing, Hey, once this is done, this amount of water has been consumed, then you can do this, or we can do this together. So I love using that tip, using your kids and get them in on it. As far as that goes too, for me, sometimes I'm not good about drinking slowly throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So right beside my bed, I've got a bottle for in the middle of the night if I wake up. What I do first thing in the morning, and this helps if you're in one of those professions, like an educator in the medical field, I wake up and I just drink the rest. Whatever I didn't drink through the night, drink. So at least I'm jump starting my day by getting a lot. And then same thing, about half an hour before my lunch break, I try to sip on whatever I was drinking throughout the day, but I chug the rest of that right before lunch, so that I know I can then go to the bathroom during lunch. And so it's just like any other habit. You can find solutions, but the big one is if you can't figure out how because you don't like the taste, one, buck up and do it. Chug it, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is let's figure out why you are so addicted to sugar that you can't drink water, because it's essential and it's free. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, talking about drinking water first thing in the morning, my habit now is to squeeze half a lemon and get the juice and put that in a big glass of water and chug that before I do any breakfast. I then take my pills, do everything, and it jumpstarts your digestive system. It jumpstarts your detoxification systems. Like lots of good things from using fresh squeezed lemon in your water.
Absolutely. So many great resources. Google, Pinterest, lots of great resources. Same thing as I said earlier. Just do it. Pick one. Pick one and do it.
And sometimes we're really good about, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to dive in. And I'm good for like a week.
Yep.
And then I'm not so good. So give us some of your best stuff on how you get back on track when you've lost it. What do you do next?
I think a lot of that has to do with what I was saying about your mindset and about really feeding positivity into your life. Because I have found the times when I am really digging into the word like I need to, the times that I am filling myself with good vibes, even though those bad days come, and they will, they always do, I found that I've got enough in the bank that it's easier for me to bounce back the next day. And so, that's the same way in anything in your life. Getting back on track has everything to do with letting that day be gone and just starting up the next day. And that starts with your mindset and what you're saying to yourself. So you talk to yourself more than any other person in the entire world. So you need to say positive things to yourself. And I didn't realize how hard that was for some people until I really began to visit with people. I'm an optimist by nature, so I tend to do that. My mom would always call me Pollyanna. But not everybody is like that. And so there's actually a resource that I'll be releasing hopefully soon talking about how to write positive affirmations for yourself. And I really think anything like that is a great way to help you get back on track so that you can remember, that day's gone and we start again. And that's the same thing with each meal. That's the same thing with each day. It's the same thing with each scenario with your kids. I just lost my cool with this kid. But you know what? The next time he does it, even if it's 20 minutes later, because it will be, I can still react differently than I did 20 minutes ago. But if you're not in the frame of mind to realize that, then it's going to be really hard. And so if you're at that place where that's all good in theory, but I'm not there. Okay, let's start filling out how we fill your cup a little bit. And we'll start with prayer and start putting positive people into your life and start reading those positive affirmations. Start little steps, pray a little, get a little sunshine, those things.
There you go. And as soon as those affirmations are ready to go, Scattered Woman Crew, I will let you know about it. So I'll send it out in an email, or we'll put it out on the Facebook, or we'll let you know when all that stuff's ready to go. Rebekah's been working real hard behind the scenes, pushing, getting her business together and getting some great stuff, really good resources out for you. So as soon as those are ready to go, I'll let you know. Rebekah, I know you're going to have to go get your kiddos pretty soon, so I'm going to keep track of the time for us. But we've gotten through 6 of 13 plus really good tips. The next section is going to be all in the post, and it's all about tips for being in the kitchen and how to get a lot of the things that we hear about are just how real food cooking, healthy cooking is just so hard, and there's so much prep work involved, and I don't know if I have time for that. And I feel the do away with the excuses, just buck up and do it thing. I feel that coming. But all of those tips that Rebekah gives us are going to be in the post. So you've got, what is that? 7 more coming in the post. So we're going to hold off on those for right now. And I'm going to jump to just what we wanted to be the end of this time talking. So Rebekah's going to give you a lot of great tips in the post about the kitchen stuff. Another thing that is awesome is if you can find really good recipes or really good books, courses, anything that will help you jumpstart your gut health. And that's my last tip for you, is to go find the Gut Health Super Bundle. It is 25 ebooks, e-courses, videos. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in this, and it's over almost $700 worth of help getting your gut health going, and it's less than $50. So it's like 93, 94% off what it would be if you were to buy all of these pieces separately. So I'm going to give you the link where you can go get it. This is my affiliate link, so thank you if you decide to buy through here. It's just scatteredwoman.com/GHSB, Gut Health Super Bundle. And it's awesome. So I'm going to give you a quick show of what this is exactly. See what you can see. Can you see? Can you see? There we go. So these are some of the things that are in there. There's resources talking about candida. So candida on ice. Yes, you can have ice cream and deal with your candida. It's a good thing. So all sorts of stuff like that. There's books that just talk about the foundations of gut health. So there's a couple of those just to give you the basics. So a lot of the things that we've been talking about today, what they're about, how to do it. There's stuff on GAPS. There's one from Health, Home, and Happiness that I've been working through called Gut Healing Starter Pack. And it's her course on how to make GAPS diet easier, how to do a lot of the tips that Rebekah talked about in the post. There's 2 different grain-free cooking cookbooks. There's the 14-day gut reset. So if you're not sure you really want to jump into a whole, I don't want to commit to GAPS because that's just really intense. The 14-day gut reset is 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of your life you can focus in and just do that. There's all sorts of, like, how to make kombucha, how to do your own ferments, things that are going to restore gut health, that are going to put good bacteria back in your gut to help fight the bad bacteria. There's, 5 different books and courses just on that stuff. There's 5 more books that are just recipes. And I will tell you, this one right here, Nourishing Joy Holiday, I used that for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it is fabulous. She's got 2 different pie crust recipes that were really good. Just a lot of things for, we think holidays and we think sweets and treats and stuff that would really throw us off our game. And that cookbook was a lifesaver. That was worth the price of admission for me. And there's several others that just talk about, solving the IBS puzzle, how digestion affects your hormones. So yes. Good stuff there. I can never remember which way to go here. So there's all sorts of awesome stuff in here. It's an awesome price for all of this stuff. I'm pretty sure you could not buy that one course that I've been going through, I'm pretty sure is worth more than the price of the bundle. It's phenomenal. And the reason I'm telling y'all about that today is because this sale for the Gut Health Super Bundle ends in 9 days. So if you want this stuff, it is going away. And as far as I have heard, this one will not be re-released. They're not planning to do another one in 2018. This is it. So if you want to get lots of great gut health resources in one place, this is the time to do it. So GHSB, Gut Health Super Bundle. Lots of letters. Anyway, that's my last tip, is if you want help and you want somebody to hold your hand as you start your gut health journey, this is the thing you want to have in your corner. All those other books that Rebekah's got, I'm sure are fantastic. You can grab those as well. They will always be there. So if you need something right now that you want lots of good stuff for a good price, this is the one you want. All right. Rebekah, I know you've got a boogie, so I'm going to give you a chance to just say goodbye to everybody and just let them know how best they can get in touch with you if they have questions, if they just want to talk to you about your journey and your story and just learn more from you. How do they get in touch with you?
Great. Well, first of all, I'm so excited about that bundle because all the things I've accumulated over the years. And so sometimes knowing that you can go and have it all in one place is so helpful because it can be overwhelming. Absolutely. And as far as just one last little thing about gut health. So if you have thought at all with anything that Laura and I have said that you're like, again, yeah, well, that's great in theory, but I can't cook because I'm at home taking a nap. I'm not able to go grocery shopping because of my kids' schedules. I'm not able, and I have to do the online, whatever it is. So many times when I really start chatting with people and we really start peeling back the layers, a lot of it starts in the gut. And so if you are frustrated because you can't lose weight and you've been trying to work out, there's probably some hormonal imbalances, some sort of issue internally. If you can't work out because you are so sick and tired, well, then let's start to address that. And so that's what I always tell people. Gut health is really getting at the root of a lot of different things and researching. If you will Google Candida overgrowth symptoms, there's like over 300. Oh, yeah. So many things that people who I love dearly are struggling with. I really believe that if we could focus on gut health, it would at least improve a lot of areas. Your sleep. I mean, just so many different things. And so, yes, I would love to chat with you guys more about that. Laura has phenomenal resources. Anybody who hopped on that came because they knew me, but not Laura, check out her website. So many great tips. And then me right now, the best way to get in touch with me is through Facebook. And you can see the link there on your screen. And I respond sporadically throughout the day, but I do respond. But really exciting, and I know Laura will share this with you guys when the time comes. There's actually some really big things I have coming that will be even better ways to get in touch with me, and that is coming very soon. But for right now, Facebook at my personal profile, and trust me, you want to check out my cute kids. So you can see them on YouTube. I know, it's true. So thank you so much for having me today. I want people to realize they can be advocate for themselves in whatever area. You can be proactive. I'm a regular old mom. And I think that when God says in John 10:10 that he wants us to have life and have it to the full, when he talks in Ecclesiastes about seasons, I know that we each have different seasons, but I think we should live it to the fullest potential that we can. And focusing on your gut health is really a good start in that direction. So,
absolutely. All right, y'all, I'm going to put that gut health link up there one more time, Rebekah.Bergren, to connect with Rebekah, and I will send you more information on her as it evolves. But thank you, Rebekah, for being with us, and Scattered Women Crew. We will talk to y'all later. And
Yes.
have a good day, y'all. Bye.
Bye.